Napoleon Dynamite. What comes to mind first? The dance? The vote for Pedro t-shirt? Jealousy stemming from your brother spending all day online chatting with babes while you have to invent a girlfriend from Oklahoma? The one insane you took for glamour shots on her birthday to keep up appearances? Maybe it's a mathematical postulation embedded in a physics calculation for the ages. Namely, is it possible for a person to throw a football over distant mountains when adjusting for arm strength, wind speed, and the feasibility of time travel vis-a-vis Destination 1982? Maybe it's more like one great melange, a butter crushed and whipped together amalgamated apple pie bottom crust, honey crumble like honeybee deseret center, leading to that southeast Idaho surface. Yeah, that barren high desert. Yeah, you see, it itself set against faraway mountains, plus a big orange van like orange creamsicle melt marmalade spread sprinkled on top, plus UFO abduction insurance, plus Lyle the lunatic he was not called but could have been, plus the Loch Ness Monster, Nessie, who as far as lake monster women go, is considered extremely beautiful. She plus Dynamite making Appalachians spin cycle full circle, the Appalachians, the calls like faraway cries, muffled, begging for her to be blown sky high out of the water. Because yeah, that's how poorly the first date went for bad monster boyfriend, prime example number one, the abominable snowman of Pasadena. He and Nessie, we tried to make it work, but also the internet is forever. And if you saw some of the snowman's archived tweets on politics, political, and perfunctory, the lack of reflection prior to click on the ladder, you'd be happy this dream couple didn't make it. Because had they made it, maybe none of us could henceforth harbor hopes of love and happiness. Speaking of sky-high eruptions, Old Faithful and Yellowstone National Park is only some 100 miles away from Victor, Idaho. Victor, Idaho being in all the limelight of this talk, Southeast Idaho, with Victor, Idaho also the home of the Grand Teton Brewing Company, where one time, not once upon a time, because as if anything of real import happens in Victor, Idaho, just a plain old Victor, Idaho day in Victor, Idaho, a Loch Ness Monster historian came to Victor, Idaho, and proceeded to get prodigiously 3 sheets to the wind wet on beer, then proceeded to go on and on to his formerly gracious host getting more and more agitated by the minute. That did they not know about the Teton range and the French language etymology, les trois titans, the 3 nipples? And then he went full francophone and said, seriously, alors les gosses, vous avez fini de déconner? Allez, mes amis, dépêchez-vous, c'est quoi ce que me dit? Encore une fois, c'est fou, quand toutes les femmes de mon jeunesse, des fois là, ce qui me donne le courage nécessaire pour plonger dans le lac. Mais fais gaffe, parce que tu déjà m'as fait terriblement mal. Yeah, he really said that, the nerve, because he just wouldn't stop. Then he told everyone in the brewery he was going back to the university and changing his focus to the American Civil War. So he could, quote, write a lot about Lincoln. Abrahammered Lincoln, get it? So there you go. Maybe Napoleon Dynamite means all or any of those above listed connotations, the plus and plus and plus this and that of the whole matter, yet we can say with certainty that this movie has a minus factor too. Minus in associated recollections and calling card, coffee punch card, maybe koala-like, kangaroo, kick punch me, myself, in my very own coffee pouch, the stomach factor. Minus Boise, minus potatoes. Many of us here may love Boise, even be from there, but can rejoice still with those who hate Boise and their football team all the more, that Napoleon Dynamite, Idaho in cinematographic flesh has nothing to do with Boise. Nothing also to do with that staple crop ignorant Americans from other parts of the country think in singular fashion symbolizes daily life in Idaho. The mornings and the nights too, but wait, well, there is a lot. A flippin' boatload of too much conversation dedicated to tater tots. Especially in the middle of class, Napoleon, give me some of your tots. No, get your own tots. In pants pocket crushed by kick to leg, freaking idiot fashion. What I bet didn't come to mind was Mormon. Napoleon Dynamite is, for all intents and purposes, a Mormon movie. It is set in Preston, Idaho, named after William B. Preston, a high-ranking official in the LDS Church at the turn of the century, a city of approximately 5,000 people, where almost 90% belong to the LDS Church. The second highest group, 4.8% Catholics, all the more impressive compared to the actually listed as 0.0% Baptists, Lutherans, Methodists, and Episcopalians. Even catch all another Christian faith registers a paltry 1.2%. Husband and wife dream team creators of this masterpiece, Jared and Joshua Hess, are Mormons and Preston High graduates to boot. The film's leading man, John Heder, is a Mormon, and the film itself developed out of an embryonic short concocted by college film majors at Brigham Young University. Napoleon Dynamite is LDS down to its core, then to the floor, then beneath the soil and through the roots onto magma. It's as Mormon a production as Mormon productions get, maybe even more so than BYU football. And that's saying something. I'm here to explain to you also it's a very Catholic movie, perhaps unintentionally and surprisingly so, but just so nonetheless. There are a few Catholic themes that run throughout the film, some of them personified in the film's characters. They are, in the order I will treat them: 1, rootedness or sense of place; 2, tranquil humility, the helpmate of reason as a path to heroism, personified by Pedro; 3, blind hubris in the daily refusal to deal with the real evidence of the fall, Uncle Rico; 4, love covers a multitude of sins, Kip; and 5th and finally, heroism in the style of St. Francis, rash vows realized. Our first theme is rootedness or sense of place. Few things are more Catholic and more particularly Benedictine in spirituality than the concept of rootedness. You've heard me speak about this multiple times in past lectures on an approach to the environment, that we must be rooted in our common home in order to appreciate it and care for it properly. On beer, that loving the land we draw that golden drink from will make it go down all the more golden. On social justice in general, be it economic or political, that loving real places, real communities will mean loving the real people who inhabit them. Each of them, everyone, all our neighbor, and in whom loving we fulfill the second half of the law and prophets' greatest commandment, reflected back onto point number 1, to love God above all with our whole heart, mind, and soul. It's Benedictine rootedness because it was put down Holy Roots monks of the 5th century AD who stood firm like anchors and saved Western civilization while simultaneously creating the Christendom to come, while also perfecting myriad arts of the agricultural and artistic variety, while also, here's the punchline, simply being, as in not ceasing to be rooted, while everyone else around them was decidedly not rooted, busy burning or being burned by the post-476 chaos of the empire's fall. Rootedness, Catholic value; non-rootedness, often not Catholic. Look at the world today. Although 2021, still very much 2020 in ways I do not have to elaborate upon, and tell me who better embodies the Catholic values of religious adherence, the family, traditional morality, authentic community, and dare I say, simple human decency based in common sense and basic respect. Is it people who go about their daily work loving the land beneath their feet, the land that's part of the real place they love, filled with real people? Or is it the postmodern technocratic class for whom each place is this place and that place, and ultimately no place at all, so long as we can sell, 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 buy, then sell, short sell, so as to grow fat and rich, our feet never touching the ground, that dirty, filthy ground truly beneath us in more ways than one? Napoleon Dynamite is a movie with a strong sense of place. It is rooted. And those roots just happen to be put down in arguably the most beautiful place east of Eden, Idaho. To get paid in pennies, that's $1 an hour. Working a day away while trying to avoid the sharp talons of a chicken. For the reward of your boss exclaiming mid-bite that over there, yonder, in that field, he had recently found some Shoshone arrowheads. That's Idaho. Napoleon's seemingly innocuous early movie trip to the guidance counselor's office asking for some lip balm is rooted Idaho. For a nearby poster advertises an upcoming basketball game versus Bear Lake. The only here, this place, Bear Lake, turquoise watered Caribbean inlet in the Rockies. Unless you forget, the receptionist wears an I love PHS pin. We all love Idaho, this part of Idaho here in this movie. And from the houses in Preston, the school, the shots of the farm fields, and the abandoned train tracks too, one quickly slips into the feel of this place and cannot be convinced it is anywhere else but where it purports to be, Idaho. And that's cool, for there's a billion films that take place in the air above some mega city skyline that can be LA or Shanghai or New York, or none of them, or all of them together, because who cares? Superhero films exacerbate this problem with their foundational unrealistic setting. Film theory geeks know hyperformalism when they see it. Rom-coms are the same thing, set in every place that is no place. Plentiful concrete and skyscrapers galore, coffee shops in each corner, scenes of people running in central city parks next to people walking dogs, walking past old men playing chess on weather-worn park benches, cloudy weather with intermittent rain ready for that closing scene where the guy and the girl make up with a long kiss under steady drizzle, he holding his copy of the New York Times, or Los Angeles Times, or Washington Post, or Chicago Tribune. over her head so she, at least the styrofoam Starbucks cup she's holding, doesn't get wet. Napoleon Dynamite does not suffer from the above stock photo cookie cutter problems. And before you protest that lots of films have scenes of high schools in small towns located in US states, the high schools themselves with pin-affixed guidance counselors, and so what? Let me tell you what. Let me tell you even what's what. Napoleon Dynamite cements rooted place with verifiable bombardment of the senses concerning the southern Idaho landscape. Go back through the film and mentally notice how many times southern Idaho, the flat, big sky open farmlands next to the unkept dirt roads, boxy ranch-style homes cloned one after the other, all this set against jagged mountains in the backdrop, the sky, always a pristine, cloudless blue. How many times that is omnipresent? From the first scene of the film, when Napoleon drops the army guy out the back of the school bus window to have him bounce and pop drag along behind, through Uncle Rico showing his first football film. This is probably the worst film ever made. Like anyone could ever know that, Napoleon. Through declaring he could throw a football over those distant mountains, then hitting his nephew in the cheek with a beefsteak, through taking his orange van out for a sales trip to nearby Benida, through Napoleon feeding Tina, onto Deb and Napoleon playing tetherball under the building music of closing credits, and that feel when I caught you a delicious bass. Idaho, this part of Idaho, this rooted place and no other place that could not be mistaken for Boise nor Twin Falls, forget north of Riggins and Whitebird, does not relent, and so gives to us the very canvas of a masterpiece that does not forget where it came from and proudly declares, yes, you can go home again. Our second theme is tranquil humility, the helpmate of reason as a path to heroism personified by Pedro. The character Pedro Sanchez and his role in the film seems predictable enough. Mexican kid alternately welcomed and not welcomed by the local community, which happens to be his own too. Perhaps here is the classic middle ground story often felt by immigrants and children of immigrants to whom where are you from manifests as a common question, a sentiment, this middle ground, well personified by the former NFL quarterback J.P. Lossman, he too of Mexican-American heritage, who said that growing up he felt, quote, too Mexican for the white kids, too white for the Mexican kids. And that's what it seems like at first blush, that the Pedro character is going to be the vehicle for exploring the tensions of dual cultural identity in modern America, et cetera, blah, 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 except no. For just like in its rootedness, Napoleon Dynamite is apart from the norm, so too does it here progress past cheap cliches and stereotypes. Yes, the culture clash shtick is present in the movie. I'm not arguing for its total absence, but it's mostly there for absurd comic relief rather than pedantic virtue signaling about tolerance and diversity. The best example being when Pedro, already then on the school presidential campaign, gets scolded in the principal's office for making a piñata out of his opponent, quote, like they do in Mexico. School starlet and leader of the cliques, Summer Wheatley. The whole scene is a self-troll on school marmishness, the principal explaining that the affair is an offense, not just to himself, not just to Pedro, or teenage politics, or Preston, but to the entire gem state. Beyond this, you'll find Pedro as an example of the second theme, of a Catholic, one proud of his faith, two, statues of the Sacred Heart and Immaculate Heart displayed outside of his house, who is humble, tranquil, rational, and has both feet planted on the firm ground of reality. This ultimately leading to authentic heroism. For to be heroic is to respond to that universal call to holiness to become a saint, each and every one of us. And this is possible for each and every one of us if we trust in God, rely on his grace, and be like Pedro, humble, tranquil, rational. Pedro is a great combination of Aquinas' embracement of the real and Augustine's focus on that which is above. His, Pedro's, citizenship in the city of God, manifesting benefits for him in the city of man. What benefits? What can we learn from Pedro's Catholic behavior? Well, Pedro sees through the vanities of life, the vanities of high school, and so is truly free to act. He asks out Summer Wheatley to the dance, and in unique fashion, by baking her a cake, because he doesn't care that she's the supposed queen of Preston High and he and Napoleon are peons on the peripheries of power. She says no, so what? He's not devastated nor even depressed. He asks another girl, Deb, to the dance. She says yes. Cool, so what? Tranquil, tranquil, tranquil. He doesn't get too high or too low by rejection or requited feelings, for all here is vanity. Vanity of already passing us by vanities, and he knows that. And what a lesson that would be for the Twitter and Instagram youth of today to learn. While at the dance, Napoleon is stiffed by his date, one of Summer's friends. Pedro proceeds to fix the problem by setting up Napoleon with Deb. He the active ingredient of a budding romance soon to flower. Pedro runs for president. Why not? The principal makes him take down his flyers post Pinata Gate. So what? Does he cry in a corner feeling sorry for himself before quitting and whining about how unfair everything is? No, you already know. No, he stays in the race, promises the student body that, quote, their wildest dreams will come true if they vote for him, like every Catholic politician should do. Because I ask you, are you or are you not a person of faith? And then sits back and allows Napoleon to repay him the favor of setting him up with Deb by absolutely crushing. I'm talking pop lock and moonwalk poning, a dance skit that secures him the presidency. Pedro never takes his feet off the rooted ground below him. He has rooted as the movie itself, and so he wins. And so too will we win if we take a cue or two from this modern silver screen saint in the making. Alas, if we can learn from Pedro in a positive sense, see and do, imitate, we can learn from our third theme guy, Uncle Rico, in the negative, see and do the opposite. Uncle Rico embodies theme number 3, blind hubris in the daily refusal to deal with the real, evidence of the fall. Uncle Rico is the 180-degree opposite of Pedro. Pedro is rooted in reality and so reaps fruits real and lasting. Rico is completely detached from reality, head in the clouds and stuck back in time, and so reaps a continual procession of spoiled fruits, mushy and already rotten. But here's the Catholic catch. This movie is so incredibly Catholic. In the vein of John 3:16, God so loved the world, under the umbrella of God is love, God is love. Even despite his own best efforts to ruin everything, beginning with himself, Rico finds happiness and love in the end. He finally finds the soulmate soaking it up together in a hot tub he's been craving all his life. His character arc, a reminder that even if we try to engineer our own self-destruction, God will not allow us to do so. And should we be so eternally stubborn as to choose our own damnation, God forbid, it really will be our own choice. For God wants all of us with him, happy beyond measure, for all eternity. Okay, 2 things first. Who is Uncle Rico? And secondly, how does he embody evidence of the fall? Uncle Rico is Napoleon and Kip's uncle, Kip being Napoleon's older brother. More on him soon. 50-something years old, single, owner of a large orange van, lover of beefsteaks, and infatuated with football, quarterbacking in particular. The second question, how does he embody evidence of the fall? Because he's literally as in actually, stuck in the year 1982. And in vast overestimation of his own abilities, believing that if he could but return to that year, and should coach put him in during the state championship fourth quarter, his team would win. He'd win a college scholarship, allowing him to quit Preston, presumably star in college, and then go on to a long and decorated NFL career. Unlike Pedro, who's focused on the here and now and so makes progress here and now, Rico's literal time travel obsession renders him incapable of productivity and being present outside of a voracious appetite for get-rich-quick schemes, like selling various quantities of Tupperware kitchen sets, the 24-piece variety coming with a miniature sailboat included gratis, and Bust Must Plus, a natural herb-based system for increasing a woman's top half, which, because Rico is so disconnected from reality, he of course passes out to a plethora of high school girls, a verifiable gaggle of gals in the creepiest way possible. You know, my friends, they call me Uncle Rico, he says while unbuttoning his shirt to hand a flyer to Deb, who had mistakenly addressed him as Mr. Rico, which leads to Bus Must Plus being taped, a cornucopia of these flyers all over Napoleon's school locker. We are introduced to Rico via his homemade football tapes, the aforementioned, quote, worst movie ever made, according to Napoleon. It's simple enough. A camera on a stand in front of which Rico throws footballs over and past the camera in the worst form imaginable. No worries, all he sees is athletic greatness. And when he claims that back in '82, he could throw a football over those mountains, we understand, again, he's being literal, he's being serious. He does in fact think he possesses the requisite arm strength to throw a football 40,000 feet, which just for, this is stupid, so why not? You know, it'll be fun. What this would look like in real life would be a person throwing a football from the goal line of one football field and it traveling through the air like a plane over 120 consecutive football fields until landing through the uprights of the 121st. To get even stupider, hence more fun, one can imagine the muzzle velocity of this throw. The reading when leaving his hand would have to be somewhere over 300 miles per hour, more than sufficient to put a hole through one of his receivers, but that's Uncle Rico for you. You ever look into time travel? Rico asks Kip, the family's resident tech savant. Yes, Kip tells Rico. He's already looked into it for himself, but to no avail. Such polite dissuasion does nothing to stop Rico from purchasing a time travel kit from a guy in Florida that has users place crystals on the top of the machine, set the dial to the desired year, and then place a headset on one's head, obviously, but that's about the only sensible thing here. And a mini pogo-looking stick between one's legs before flipping on the electricity. Napoleon tries it out of curiosity and gets hurt, and then declares the time machine a ripoff. I could have told you that, Rico says, exiting the bathroom wincing in pain. Rico is evidence of the fall because he well embodies all of our own obstinate refusal to get up and out of bed and on with our day, like Pedro successfully does. So many of us waste ample parts of our day wishing we could go back, assured if just this or just that, everything would be different. In doing so, we remain mired in a prison of our own making, as totally enslaved as Pedro is totally free, and so waste our time and talents, and for what? She said I was living too much in 82. Rico says in a moment of self-awareness to Kip over burgers and fries and some greasy spoon, he referring to why his latest girlfriend had dumped him, before assuring Kip that he would, quote, contact the authorities if he did not receive a full refund for the time machine purchase. Don't be like Rico, be like Pedro. But if you are or become like Rico, know that God still loves you. God loves you so much and wants your happiness, your perfect joy, more even than you want to return to 1982. And so Rico, despite himself to the max, and after his latest flop at the end of the movie, having his right arm broken by an angered husband, not liking Bus Must Plus being shilled to his wife, this development forcing Rico to start making football videos of himself throwing left-handed. This in itself, gloriously Catholic, the perseverance of this, probably Rico's most redeemable feature. As he's throwing footballs left-handed with his right broken arm bandaged in a cast, a woman emerges on a bike while he is filming his training session. She dismounts and parks the bike next to his orange van. He stops throwing, puts the football down, forever perhaps, and walks towards her smiling. 1982 is finally in the past, and Rico's about to find the happiness he's long been after. Our fourth theme is love covers a multitude of sins, personified by Napoleon's older brother, Kip. Kip is, depending on your favorite insult, a nerd, a loser, or a geek. If you've got something else, go for it. He's 32 years old, so 14 years older than his younger brother Napoleon, still in high school and lives at home with Napoleon in their grandmother's house. Nothing is explained regarding the absence of a grandfather, and more curious still, their parents. Kip is frail to the point of should be wind advisory worried, and wears glasses and button shirts fastened to the top button tucked into his khaki pants. He sports a mustache. He is not employed, not in school, trade, or graduate, and spends practically every moment in chat rooms online. That Napoleon Dynamite was made in 2004 is a delicious fact vis-a-vis online living. For 2004, if you remember, was the year Facebook was launched, but MySpace and AOL chat were still it. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and everything else to the billionth factor were not a twinkle in anyone's eyes. Yes, I love technology. Not as much as you see, but I still love technology. Always and forever. Always and forever. Kip will sing in the movie's epilogue. He has mentioned spending hours in the chat rooms of the 1990s web, functioning via a truly old school dial-up connection. One can only imagine the disaster he'd be today with such evolved social media options. Kip logs on and stays on and sits and keeps staying online. He tells Napoleon he's training to be a cage fighter, then gets smacked across the face and told he has the worst reflexes ever. He will later tap out during an impromptu spar with his younger brother because his neck meat got bruised. That's his term that he uses. Instead of rightfully criticizing Rico's training clip as the worst movie ever, Napoleon was spot on there. Blue light zonked Kip squeaks, that's pretty cool, I guess. Instead of properly demonstrating the resiliency of a Tupperware container, because of course he ends up working for Rico in the movie, by tugging on it, he places it beneath the back tire of Rico's orange van and backs up under the watchful eyes of a potential customer. It explodes, sale lost. Nothing left to do but yell, dang it, and drive away. But love covers a multitude of sins. So said St. Paul, and so to us shows Kip. Kip really has been chatting with babes online all day. He has not been aimlessly wasting his life away as it has appeared to us, the viewers. And this woman, LaFonda, she comes to Idaho from Detroit by bus to prove her love to Kip. And it is a love story realized, for immediately they hit it off in person. And although Kip loses nothing of his nerddom in full symptom transformation from computer nerd to discount M&M, they really have hit it off, and for good. It is to LaFonda that Kip sings, "Yes, I love technology, not as much as you see," post-vows at their post-movie wedding. Because the film shows us we really should not judge. And behold, the geekiest geek of them all, happiest in love at the end. And thanks to, not in spite of, his geekiness. And as we move to number 5, our 5th and final theme, heroism in the style of St. Francis' rash vows realized, where we at long last arrive at Napoleon Dynamite himself. We will one more time revisit Kip and his love covers a multitude of sins, unseeming, below the radar, yet monumental contribution to the ultimate victory here, fit between 95 minutes of tape from action to cut, start to finish. You get it. More on that soon. St. Francis of Assisi had crazy energy, was perpetually in motion, always gaining towards, if stumbling and falling forward to some goal. Maybe his methods were crazy, but it was a crazy holiness and got the job done. Napoleon, like the man himself, protagonist of Napoleon Dynamite, is a lot like that, a lot like St. Francis. Like Kip, he's geeky and nerdy and awkward. Taller than his older brother by a foot, he has steel wool red hair and wears glasses, and is a member of the Happy Hands Club at Preston High, and presents the Loch Ness Monster for his current event, and gets thrown and pushed and shoved into lockers with terrifying frequency. He invents a girlfriend, tells another girl, this girl we've been talking about the whole time, Deb, she could be drinking whole milk, not 1%. And are you doing that because you think you're fat? Then draws the unintentionally creepiest pencil sketch of a classmate with an attached note asking her to the dance. The one and same dance Pedro will arrange for Napoleon to dance with Deb, igniting that classic romance, for which he receives a yes response to only because the mother of the girl feels sorry for Napoleon and forces her daughter to accept. Rico, on a business trip, a Tupperware selling business trip to this house, had described his nephew as, quote, tender little guy who still wets the bed and whatnot. As mentioned, the girl, Tricia, dumps Napoleon the minute they arrive at the dance. Napoleon seems to be a total joke. He keeps nunchucks in his locker and spends his free time drawing mythical creatures, the crossbred Liger, his masterpiece. And yet, Catholic lesson take note, he keeps on going, keeps on with that crazy insanity rooted in love. Napoleon, hard though it may be to see at times, and kudos to the film's creators for their subtlety, loves. He loves his family. He loves his friends. And so coming to that most critical part of the movie, often missed even by aficionados, LaFonda is sitting at the dining room table and Napoleon emerges from his room bathed in sweat following rigorous dancing. Intrigued, LaFonda tosses him a mixtape her cousin made. Napoleon masters a dance to this mixtape. This is the dance he performs as part of Pedro's obligatory skit. And this is the same dance that secures his friend the presidency, his very best friend who he loves very much. Loves enough to dance solo on a stage in front of the whole school, which, as far as the courage meter goes for high school kids, that's right at the very top. And what a nice final twist. Outsider and long shot Pedro, a bona fide Catholic hero, defeating establishment queen Summer Wheatley. Predictive programming for the then 12 years in the future, equally unexpected triumph of Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. Napoleon Dynamite is a Mormon-made movie with Catholic insides, outsides, tops, and bottoms. As firmly rooted in the fertile Idaho soil as a russet, it clearly lays out the benefits and pitfalls of a life based in reality versus the denial thereof, and yet final penitence be granted us all, Lord. It shows that even for those like Rico, redemption is always at hand, maybe right around the corner. Finally, lest you be judged, do not judge yourself. The last man you'd assume to have skills with the female folk lands his dream girl. Last man you'd assume to be a good dancer proves he can get any club popping and beyond belief. And last man you pick to head the ticket to take down the Summer Wheatley political machine proves to be the type of politician Idahoans have always wanted. The one who can finally make good on the promise to make all of our wildest dreams come true.